So here we are in your standard run-of-the-mill Ruthless mission. I mean, it's nothing you haven't seen here before. Your bread and butter, standard operation of many, many bugs, many Xenos, however you want to look at it. And yeah, sure, it gets a little crowded, but it's nothing that you can't handle. It's manageable, the amount of crazy and chaos that goes on in here. Ruthless has that good balance, I would say, of, oh, I don't know, just enough difficulty to it and enough enemies in there where it's a decent power fantasy. Like, it feels like, what a Space Marine would be fighting through a lot of the time. And granted, I feel like, you know, we hear that the Tyranids, especially, try to tend to throw a bunch, like swarms, many, many millions of things at planets and such. So it seems lore accurate the more there are, right? Well, Ruthless, while it has a good balance of it, it is lacking something. It is lacking that little bit of behind it, the little bit of believability, that love, that soul. I don't know what you want to call it. It has many names, I'm sure. But as this was the Ruthless side of it, here's the same section in Lethal. Yep, I finally got around to doing Lethal. I mean, you probably saw it last thumbnail. I showed the helmet off, but I hadn't got around to throwing these together for y'all to show the journey through Lethal. Now, what I noticed immediately is not all the time Lethal, it kind of feels like, okay, not all the time is it that hard. It's kind of similar to Ruthless, but if I'm being honest with you, it has clear distinctions. Distinctions we'll get to in a minute, but the number of enemies, it's cranked up not that much higher than what, Ruthless has. I feel like it's pretty similar, and the actual, like, amount of damage they can tank is pretty similar as well. It's only just, amped up a little bit. They can dish out a decent amount of damage. I will say that's a little bit more than Ruthless, but that's to be expected with difficulty scaling and such. They added in actual, like, okay, not just these newish enemies, the redheads, and in Chaos's terms, like pinkish purplish heads, but what they'll do is they'll throw double specials at you. So what you see here is a Lictor, easily killed, but on top of that is a Ravener at the same time. I think this is one of the best changes they could do to the difficulty. Kind of adds that extra bit of immersion or whatever. Just makes it feel more like they're trying to send everything they got at you. So anytime you see a Ravener, expect a Zoanthrope. Or if you see a Lictor, maybe expect another Lictor, even though they're only meant to be one Lictor at a time. This difficulty just kind of says, fuck it. We ball and we do whatever, I guess. It's really cool seeing, Zoanthropes with Raveners, because as a sniper, it's easy for me to kill Zoanthropes. And Raveners, just get good dodges and good gun strikes and good parries, and for the most part, they are easy money as well. It's whenever you have to fight, I don't know, like two Lictors simultaneously on you, or two Raveners or whatever, or just the right amount of Zoanthrope, goo balls getting thrown at you. It's that kind of stuff that can kind of throw a wrench into things. But of course, it's not like it's impossible to handle. What I've learned through all this is if you're careful about things and you know your class very well, you can get through this solo if you manage it. I mean, I managed to do two different missions solo, completely start to finish, by myself. Nobody managed to join. I think one of them they joined, but they immediately left before they even got to select character. So, okay. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, it's super easy. Lethal means business, okay? Lethal is a serious difficulty, a serious increase of difficulty from Ruthless to Lethal, only in the sense of the damage output, in my opinion. All these other things are really cool additions, like the redheads, Which, speaking of, easy strategy for you to always make sure there's only at least just one, or you have to deal with the least amount of redheads, is kill everything else that can take the redhead buff, so every other Majoris level enemy. Do that before you kill it, because it can transfer over to another one, like warrior to warrior, rubric marine to rubric marine, and so on. That shit is annoying. So big recommend on killing all the ones around that thing first, and then taking the redhead out. Mind you, this is just all from playing. This is what I learned. It's not like I sat here and, like, did homework on this. This is from experience, right? Nobody else taught me this stuff. A lot of the fundamentals come up in Lethal too, like, should I take this gun strike or this gun strike? Is this one safe? Is that one safe? Execution or gun strike? Getting gun strikes off of your heavy attacks and the sprinting attacks and so on. Like, that stuff comes up a lot, and it's very important to know how to do all these things and to even spam them if need be to survive. Because sometimes, they will overwhelm you and overrun all over you, man. Like, goddamn. I feel like the few amount of enemy spawns, it adds to the swarms, and, that's just enough to kind of overwhelm. I mean, sure, in Ruthless you can get overwhelmed and even substantial, but the difficulty is where the damage outputs are, I would say. Throw a bunch of enemies at me, they do a little damage, it's not much, sure, it can add up, but you throw that same amount at me and they do real damage, now we kind of have a problem. It's just one of those things that you learn to manage over time. Now, I will say, I chose the sniper for safety. Felt like, more methodical and all that. But truth be told, it's also because I don't like to play the bulwark, for example. Any melee class, right? If they don't have a primary weapon, I don't really fuck with it, truth be told. Now, bulwark and sniper are the two easy picks. Third one, tactical, just for the extra damage if you're trying to do lethal. But for the most part, pick the class you're comfortable with. You don't have to learn a whole new setup just for lethal if you don't want to. I mean, sure, it can help you. Like, if you're doing assault, you find that you have a little bit of trouble here and there, maybe go bulwark because, skills can translate really well between those classes. But if you're doing range stuff, I mean, why wouldn't you just try sniper? Nice high damage and safety. But the tactical has good options there too, so don't neglect that stuff. It's just all about what you're comfortable with and what you feel like you're going to need in the mission. I did it all with sniper because I felt the most comfortable with it, and to me, sniper is just like I have a delete button almost at all times. I mean, look at that footage right there in the background showing you just like zoanthropes done, dealt with, not even skipping a breath most of the time when that happens. The only real problem comes with lictors and raveners. I mean, it's hard enough to hit their heads because, I have bad aim. But the really tiny head on a lictor, it's, I rarely hit that damn thing, so I don't even worry about it. I just put damage in them. Like, end of the day, if you are doing decent damage, you're gonna do alright in here. But it also matters your decision making and such, and team composition. Yeah, it matters, but like I said earlier, you can do this solo. So, I mean, what, you have bots on at most of the time? And yeah, they don't do the best, but they do enough. They do just enough to where you can manage with or without them, depending. Without them would be harder, sure, but they're more of a help than they are a hindrance. Now, they used to be way worse, but that's okay. It doesn't matter as long as you know what you're doing and what's right to do in what scenario. That's the stuff that matters more than, oh, I got heavy bot, you know, or whatever. Bulwark bot's the worst one to get sometimes because, if I want armor, I'm gonna get armor through gun strikes and stuff. But there's me ranting. At the end of the day, choose what you think is the most optimal or the most fun. Here you can see though, as soon as I kill this redhead, it's gonna transfer over to the one right here, this new warrior here sitting there fighting my buddy. Just kill the other stuff around the redheads first, okay? You'll save yourself a lot of headache at the end of the day. Now, I'm sure a lot of people think this difficulty is probably a little unfair and probably a bit bullshitty even at times, and yeah, sure, I'll give you that. A few times it can go a little crazy, but because of how difficult it can be, that also equals how rewarding it is when you complete it. Maybe some people will disagree with that just because, like, it wasn't, fun to go through that hell, right? I mean, I would argue that it can be a bit bullshit any scenario in any difficulty, right? So, I mean, who cares, right? I mean, it's fun to go through the hard stuff, but it can also just be fun to just steamroll everything, depending on what you're looking for. It's that extra bit of challenge, though, that players like me appreciate, I guess. I mean, that's the only thing I can come up with at that point, where, like, that extra bit of challenge, the double specials being thrown at me, stuff like that. I appreciate that more than just steamrolling stuff. Like, Raveners getting, like, acid pools underneath them, weird change, right? But game changer overall because of how used you are to fighting them without that. Like, you get so accompanied to a Ravener's just gonna, you know, go in his hole, jump at me, do whatever, XYZ. You don't expect him to have acid all the time, you know? Acid underneath him, like a trail of it behind him, like, that stuff can be a nice little surprise. It's almost like, adding modifiers to enemies, that interesting little thing that can be done to change the game up. Not a whole lot, but just enough for the people like me. It's like, oh, okay, one extra thing to worry about. It's whatever. But I'm sure some people see that and they're like, fuck this noise. This fucking sucks. And that's fair. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that's wrong, because it's very fair. It's honestly how it goes. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's all easy, it's all fair, whatever. I understand the game can be a bit fucky at times with what they throw at you. Kind of to the point where you're like, is this even possible? I've seen, like, personally shown on this channel, double zoanthropes and a neurothrope in this very area that you see in the background. Is that fair? Nah. Was it fun to fight that? Not a whole lot. But getting out of it, yeah, that was cool. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and recommend people go through that kind of scenario just to be like, yeah, cool. Tell your boys at the tavern kind of story. Like, it doesn't matter. All right, it's just funny seeing it whenever you, like, zoom out and you're like, okay, this is a bit ridiculous what this game's trying to do to me. But if you're able to overcome it, hey, all the better for you. It's better to overcome a challenge like that than just steamroll something and get, like, next to nothing out of it. If you get too comfortable, in an easy game mode, right? You can get bored of something really easily. You can start just, like, making the game, okay, feels dull. You're making it feel dull for yourself by not pushing it. Or if it is fun for you and all that, it doesn't end. I mean, fuck it, right? You aren't doing anything bad at that point. But I found personally, if I play on too low of a difficulty, stuff just starts, not hitting as well. It doesn't hit the dopamine parts in my little monkey brain. So you gotta seek out new things to do in those scenarios, right? I mean, that's one thing I've gone for. I've always advocated try out all these new things. Don't just use the one, yada yada. That's all part of that same mentality, I suppose. Anyway, though, as far as chaos goes on Lethal, I hope you like Terminators and Sorcerers and Xanagors and the new Enlightened one. And get ready for that Enlightened one to be the pink or purpley head. I don't know what color. It kind of cycles between the two, right? It's like cotton candy head or whatever, basically. But Rubric Marines and those Xanagors can get them. Only the Enlightened ones, mind you. So if it's flying around on the disc and it can call in reinforcements, be ready to have to deal with that guy getting cotton candy head every now and then, alright? Same rule applies too for the redhead on the warriors and such. Cotton candy head will transfer to other Rubric Marines, other Xanagar Enlightened, whatever. So, same rule there. Take out everything around it if you can manage it. But, it's not high priority. It's just kind of quality of life for you. Alright, so contextually speaking, only do it when you need to. Only do it whenever the situation calls for it, whatever. It's up to you, man. Live your life how you want to. I'm not gonna sit here and babysit you about that kind of shit, alright? Only recommendation there. Okay? I just hope you really, really like fighting double Terminators, or maybe like a Terminator and a Sorcerer, or like two Sorcerers, or whatever. I hope you like that shit. Because that's Chaos missions. And the other half of that is just absolute, just army of Xanagors and Marines on your ass at all times. I feel like the Tyranid missions are a lot easier because, I don't know, I guess I know the enemy a lot better, but everything there is, like, solved for me. Zoanthropes, snipered. Warriors, they eat the cloak sniper too. Everybody gets one, alright? Same with Chaos. It's not like it changed my strategies up at all. It just felt easier on the Tyranid side of things, which is weird to me. Although, to be fair, there's more melee in there. Whenever I'm playing a ranged unit, I can kind of dance outside of their melee ranges and stuff. Sometimes. Chaos is, I'm going to teleport in your face, you're going to have this flamethrower in there, I'm going to teleport out, I'm going to get respawned by my sorcerer, Terminators are going to get you. There's a whole plethora of things that shoot at you on Chaos, and I think that's the real difference there is long range sucks to deal with whenever they do a lot of damage. And, kind of enforces you to actually play cover. In this game, you don't really have to do that a lot. But the few times where you have to, you better be ready to do it. Chaos forces that. Some of their missions, though, not a lot of cover while you're fighting them. I can think of Vox Liberatus. That circle, like the very first time you fight the Chaos guys after you go in there. Sure, you do a little bit of this and that with them, but you step out, and it's just this wide open zone where you have to capture the point, basically, and they spawn everywhere. Yeah, that shit sucks, alright? I'm just gonna be honest. That shit is brutal on Lethal. If you don't bring the right team, that's gonna be hell. And even if you don't, you know, even if you don't struggle against Chaos, I feel like Lethal, it's gonna make you rethink some things. It's gonna make you kind of stop for a second and think, okay, what do I do here, there, whatever. It's just that kind of difficulty. It's the kind of difficulty that makes even the seasoned players stop and think for a second because of just the overwhelming odds they try to throw at you. And to me, that's pretty badass. Although I understand, like I was saying earlier, I get it if people are like, this is some bullshit, broken ass difficulty, whatever. Just, you're not ready yet, or you're clearly good enough at the game, but you think it's bullshit, whatever. There's a plethora of reasons, man. Everything's contextual, like I said. This difficulty was the one that I was looking forward to back when I started Ruthless, but it took me so long to even try to do Lethal. I think before this streak of playing Lethal missions, I did it one time, and I failed it. To be fair, though, around that time, I wasn't ready, and I could tell you that. Same levels on everything. Like, it wasn't my characters that changed, it was experience gained through playing. So, if you're not nailing these lethal missions off of the rip, it's a lot of trial and error. Like, you gotta try, you gotta fail, make mistakes, and learn like that to be able to do this stuff properly, in my opinion. You're not just gonna jump in here, immediately rip everything apart, and call it a day. You're gonna have to fail a few times, die in these missions, and above all, you should be practicing in Ruthless. Above everything else, practice your fundamentals and everything in Ruthless. It's the closest you're gonna get to lethal. You know, just the few changes I've mentioned with the red heads, cotton candy heads, and the double special enemies at you. Extremist enemies, whatever you want to call them. Those are your differences, really. Other than damage and, enemy numbers, right? That's to be expected and difficulty changes. It's just, how you handle all of these things added together, I would say. You know, decision making, so on. Like, practicing in Ruthless, transferring all those skills over into Lethal. If you're struggling with Chaos, play a bunch of Chaos missions. If you're struggling with, parries, use a fencing blade or whatever. You have options to work around these problems that they're presenting you in here. It's just, how okay, how is your problem solving, really? Do you fuck with the puzzles and stuff essentially? Cuz like if you think about it, these things can be puzzles. It's just how do you solve it? What pieces do you have to do that with? If you have to learn how to use a new weapon, so be it. That could be the exact thing you need to solve this problem. Whole new class? Yeah, that's probably what you need. You never know. You got to try these things out to see what is a good fit. Trial and error, like I said. It's just a matter of, like, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to be dedicated enough to do it? And be ready for anything in these lethal missions, like, lethal is one of those things. It's a fickle mistress, right? It will willingly let you go through the mission with no problem, but as soon as you're getting comfortable, Hellbrute, Neurothroat, Carnifex, what the fuck ever. And then they'll throw a whole bunch of other noise at you. What I'm trying to say is, I guess, always be ready in lethal. You can't let your guard down even for like 2 seconds because somebody's gonna scroll, reinforcements are gonna get called, double Terminators spawn in. I mean, it's chaos out there, literally. It's fucking chaos. If you're able to thrive under pressure, you actually could easily thrive in this environment. You can have that grace under pressure, if you will. It's just hard, you know, to get ready for that. It's hard to know when you're ready for this, too. Only you could say that. And you never know until you try it. This was one of the missions right here, Fall of Atreus. I had to do solo, completely solo. I was dreading doing this mission because normally it sucks. Normally it sucks to fucking push the battery, fight everything off, and even with teammates, it can be rough. Doing this shit on lethal with a couple of bots, man, that is a whole nother experience, I will say. It's not like it was like impossible. It wasn't insanely brutal, but it was on the verge of being like actually insane. All right, one of the crazier things that you'd have to do in here. I tried it with the reliquary mission. Man, that mission is actually fucking hard. Props to anybody that did that one. I hadn't been able to complete that one to this day. I find that mission to be the hardest one on lethal. To be fair though, it is a chaos mission, so it's like 50-50 whether or not you're gonna do it or not. It's either you're gonna complete it really easily, or a little bit of hardness there, a little bit of toughness, or you just back and forth. It's either a breeze, either really hard, or it's somewhere in between. I guess it's chaos though. Expect anything out there. I guess that's one thing too. You have to be ready for literally anything. That's why I was telling you never let your guard down because you never know what they're about to throw at you. I guess if you need like recommendations for loadouts and stuff, I mean, as you see, I use a high damage weapon on the sniper, so I would recommend anything that hits really goddamn hard, like hits like a truck, freight train, whatever you want to fucking say. Anything that can hit that goddamn hard, you want that. Something to help clear the fodder, like the bolt pistol, the standard bolt pistol is really good. If you find that you aren't meleeing a lot, and you're really only using it for parries and gun strikes, obviously a fencing weapon is the clear choice there because you just farm parries with that. But, like me, I use my melee a little bit. I use the balance one. I mean, I just showed this same setup off like 2 videos ago, right? It's the same setup I just talked about. But it's an easy recommend because you need good firepower, you need to be able to clear crowds. Like, for example, your grenades are some of the most important things you can use in here, in lethal especially. Frag grenades go a long way. I mean, sure, the crack grenades do a lot for you, but to be honest with you, my sniper rifle does most of what a crack grenade can do, other than on bosses, right? Because bosses, they just go crazy with the tactical scan. But, my sniper does, with 1, 2 shots on Majoris level enemies to get them executable. So I don't need to waste crack grenades on them. Frag grenades, easy, easy pick. That and a melt-a-bomb for crowds because it's like the easiest delete button you've ever seen in your life. I mean, I've already shown a few times where the melt-a-bombs came in clutch. So, I'm not just sitting here preaching. I practice what I preach, all right, people? I sit here and actually recommend things, but I'm recommending the things that I've seen success with. All right, it's not like I'm just pulling it out of my ass. This is the stuff that through trial and error I have learned what is good for me, so I recommend, those same things. People that use them probably know. I mean, the good snipers out there, they know, all right? They don't need to be told. The good players in general don't need to be told, like, yeah, this is great, use that. They make anything work or they use whatever they want. You know what I mean? So, like I was saying, use what you find fun, but try to find those things that hit just hard enough for you to easily kill stuff and move through crowds and, you know, so on. There's a lot of little micromanaging like that where, like my pistol is only for, Xanagors, fucking Hormagaunts, for the most part, unless I am fully out of ammunition and where I don't want to waste one extra shot of my sniper. Like, it's small stuff like that that goes a long way in here, but, you know, is it totally necessary? Maybe. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I've only done the 7 lethal missions. Yeah, 7 or so for the helmet. So I've done about that much. That's where my lethal knowledge ends, is about those many missions, right? So through those missions, I have learned all these things I've been, you know, basically yapping about for, I don't know, it's almost been 30 minutes now. Jesus Christ. Whoever made it this far, you're resilient. Jesus Christ. But, yeah, I mean, lethal is something you have to respect. It's a difficulty that demands you know your shit and you know when to do it, when not to do it, whatever. Many plethora of things that you have to do properly here. I suppose general tips for lethal is make sure you scout around and actually loot the joint, but make sure you use everything wisely. A wasted melt-a-bomb, it's felt. A wasted shot on your heavy hitting weapons. That hurts because you only have so many hits on ammo boxes. You kind of have to wisely use these things, not miss your shots. That's what I was talking about earlier. I suppose you have to be on point, I guess. You have to be on it. You have to know your shit. You have to fucking know when to do this, when to do that. It it's insane, right? It genuinely can be a bit crazy at times, but you know, if you are capable of these things, lethal will be no problem. It might be a little bit of a problem, sure, especially when the game lags or something on you. This is all contextual, of course, but at the end of the day, if you are really good at surviving fights, using things wisely, knowing where to post up, I mean, you don't even need me to tell you that kind of stuff. You know this shit, you're good then. But, depending on what mission you're on, there's better places to sit, there's better things to use on enemies, like, a hive tyrant. crack grenades go hard on the Tyrant. Same with the proper headshots from, the right weapons and a good assault player being able to duel them with a hammer. All these things are really solid to use, but would I recommend throwing those crack grenades at just fucking all these Xanagors that spawn on me? No. Only for the enlightened ones. If you don't make it stick to something random, or well, the game chooses really that, it's just one of those things where comfort is what you need. So getting in there and learning how to survive and thrive and all of this bullshit that can happen. I mean, dude, chaos missions are fucking. It's all Xanagors. Oops, all Xanagors. Like, fucking hell. It's what they have to stop us other than the Rubric Marines. So, if you're good at dealing with them, good at popping headshots off of Xanagors, for the most part, you will be fine. I mean, you have nothing to worry about on Chaos missions, honestly. And Tyranid missions are easier than that, so if you're good at handling Chaos, everything's cash money for you. It's just, Enlightened Xanagors are a bit of a problem. For me, especially as a sniper, because I don't want to waste shots, but just try to find the damn guy in my scope. Fucking hell. This is a normal Chaos fight, by the way. Both of the ones you've just seen, all the Xanagors, and the few times they throw Marines at me, too. It's just like, it's Chaos. It's a few guys getting thrown at you. But what turns out to be more important, really, at the end of the day, is how many of these guys there are and how much damage that they can do. I did say earlier it's not that much worse than Ruthless, right? But it is just enough for you to feel how much more it is. You feel the difference. You can tell they tank more damage and they deal more damage. So why is that bad? In scenarios like these, in the last stand zones, when they throw just constant hordes at you and always something being done, like this one in particular, Obelisk, I can't clear this place. All I can do is stop reinforcements, really, because the sorcerer is gonna res every single one of the Rubric Marines. So, like, what the fuck do you do, right? Well, you fucking speedrun the objective. That's what you do before they peg you hard. All right, that's your only option. And a lot of the time in this, the sorcerer's shields, the little bubble things that you have to shoot, they're not even up. I mean, you can see them right now. There's not even one to be seen. So I have to survive long enough until they pop back up. Or I don't know if you have to kill to actually get that to happen. But there's a whole other sorcerer here. So I've got two of them. Two of them to deal with here. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I was not exactly not panicking, but it's these sections here that test your resilience. They test if you got the chops, all right? Because they're constantly summoning guys. The guys that I kill just get rezzed. If I didn't have a Guardian Relic, I would have just lost it right there. Easy shmoney. No problem, would have been a failure. Had to redo the whole thing. But because I found a Guardian Relic, luckily, 2 times that saved me 3 different missions. Yeah, if you see one, grab one. It's the only reason I won some of these, alright? That's what I was gonna say, essentially. Is because of these things, I finished these missions. If I didn't have a Guardian Relic, I mean, what even would I have been here? Nah, but seriously, I would have been dead, and I would have had to reset. It is sections like this in the game that truly show you you're on lethal. Damn it. Respect it and show what you got. Show me what you got. Like, goddamn. These ones will test your might, test your metal, test your sanity. I mean, goddamn. If you are able to get this far in a mission, then you have to just push that much further in it, alright? Just a little bit more. But it's very hard, as you can see. I have to just get around so much bullshit. And now I have no idea where the sorcerer is, right? In this scenario. What do you do? you guess and you hope for the best, right? That's sometimes what you have to do is just kind of pray, hope, you know, have a little bit of luck, whatever. Whatever you think you got to do there, in my opinion, it is a lot of luck. You know, there's a lot of luck that goes into runs like this too, because of what the game gives you and such. So, you know, don't just sit there and worry about it if they don't give you what you need. Trial and error, keep trying. Eventually, you will complete those missions and get the helmet for yourself. Godspeed to you, gentlemen. I hope you get it.